Good morning, afternoon, and evening. Welcome to the Global Brief by OneRead.news, where we present you information from all over the globe. Follow us on Insta at global.oneread and help us spread the word by sharing this with everyone you know. Today, we're going to untangle some of the biggest stories shaping our world. We'll connect the dots between political power plays, the pressures on our societies, and those moments of conflict and collaboration that really define us. So let's get right into it.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. Think of it like a three-act play. Act 1 is all about the big stage: power, peace, and politics. You know, the world leaders, the major decisions. Then, Act 2, we zoom right in on society on the edge to see how all that high-level stuff actually impacts real people. And we'll wrap up with Act 3, climate, culture, and collaboration, where we look at the huge challenges and amazing breakthroughs we're all a part of.
All right, let's dive into Act 1, Power, Peace, and Politics. This is the grand chessboard. We're talking about the handshakes, the military posturing, and the high-stakes deals that are happening all over the globe. Let's start with a really big one.
So get this. There's a major meeting planned for August 15th between US President Trump and Russia's Vladimir Putin. And they're meeting in Anchorage, Alaska. Talk about a symbolic halfway point. The main topic? A potential peace deal for Ukraine. But here's the massive catch. Look at Ukraine's position. President Zelensky is basically saying, absolutely not. He is completely rejecting any kind of deal that involves trading Ukrainian land for peace, especially a deal he's not even a part of. He's making it crystal clear that Ukraine's future will not be decided for them. This really sets the stage for a dramatic diplomatic clash. Is it a real path to peace, or is it a dangerous game of redrawing maps without the consent of the people who live on them? The whole world is watching this one.
Okay, from a tense summit to be, let's jump over to the Korean Peninsula for something genuinely hopeful. North Korea has started taking down its propaganda loudspeakers along the DMZ. Now, you have to understand, this is a big deal. Since 1963, these speakers have been blasting everything from anti-South Korean slogans to, yes, K-pop across one of the most fortified borders on Earth. It's a constant, noisy symbol of conflict. This move by the North comes right after South Korea made some of its own de-escalation moves. It's a classic tit for tat, but instead of escalating, they're de-escalating. It's a small, quiet step, but in a world that's always so loud, it's incredibly significant.
Now let's head down under. The leaders of Australia and New Zealand just had a big meeting, and they're pledging to get even tighter on everything from military cooperation to trade and foreign policy. So what's the real story here? This isn't just about being friendly neighbors. It's a strategic move. With growing tensions and competition in the Indo-Pacific region, they're closing ranks. They're sending a clear signal that they are a unified front, ready to face whatever challenges come their way. Think of it as strengthening an old alliance for a very new and uncertain era.
Sticking with that part of the world, let's look at Indonesia. A really interesting power shift is happening. President Prabowo Subianto is bringing back the position of Deputy Military Commander. Now, this role was gotten rid of 25 years ago for a reason, to help curb the military's influence in politics as the country moved toward democracy. So bringing it back now? Well, that's a statement. This isn't just some administrative tweak. It suggests a move toward a more powerful, more assertive military. And you can bet everyone in the region is watching very, very closely to see what this means for the balance of power.
And here we have a classic case where you have to ask, what are we really looking at? In Chad, the former prime minister and a major opposition figure, Success Masra, has been sentenced to 20 years in jail. The official charge is that he incited violence. On the surface, that's the justice system doing its job. But when you see a government's most prominent critic get locked away for 2 decades, you have to ask the question, is this about justice or is this a political power play? Is the law being used to maintain order, or is it being used as a tool to silence dissent? It's a story we see play out all over the world.
This next story is just a heartbreaking example of how hard peace can be. On the border between Thailand and Cambodia, 3 Thai soldiers were just injured by a landmine. And the timing is what's so awful. It happened just days after a ceasefire agreement in the area had been extended. This is the brutal reality. Leaders can sign papers and shake hands, but the ghosts of old wars are literally still in the ground. These legacy weapons, they don't know a ceasefire has been called. They're a deadly reminder that the violence of the past can erupt without warning and shatter the peace we're trying to build today.
All right, that's a wrap on Act 1. we've seen the big picture. Now, for Act 2, we're coming down to ground level. This is society on the edge, where we see how all those big political moves actually feel for everyday people. And, well, things are pretty tense out there.
I'm going to start this section with just one thing, a number, 474. Just let that sit there for a second. No context, just 474.
So that number, 474, that's how many people were arrested at a single protest in London. They were there to support a group called Palestine Action. This is the highest number of arrests in a single police operation in the UK for years. And this is where the story gets really interesting. It started as a protest about a foreign conflict, but because of the massive police response, it's turned into a huge debate right there in the UK about the right to protest itself. It's become a domestic flashpoint over a fundamental freedom.
From a protest in London to a full-blown crisis in Haiti, the government there has just declared a 3-month state of emergency. You have to understand, this isn't just a precautionary measure, it's an act of desperation. Gangs in Haiti control huge parts of the country, including critical areas of the capital. They control the flow of food, fuel, everything. So when the government declares a state of emergency, it's basically an admission that it's losing control. It's a cry for help from a nation on the absolute brink.
Over in Argentina, society's feeling the pressure from a very different source, its own president. President Milei, who famously campaigned with a chainsaw to show he meant business about cutting spending, is doing exactly that. He just vetoed bills to increase spending on pensions and disability. His goal is a zero-deficit budget, and he's willing to make incredibly tough cuts to get there. It's a form of economic shock therapy, and it's a massive gamble. He's betting that the very real social pain these cuts will cause in the short term is a price worth paying for long-term economic stability.
And, like before, here comes another number. This one is much, much bigger. Over 1,500. Just take that in for a moment. 1,500 plus.
That number, 1,500 plus, is the estimated death toll from a single attack in April on the Zamzam refugee camp in Darfur, Sudan. This isn't an official count. This comes from a deep investigation by the Guardian newspaper, and it highlights two terrible truths. One, the massive gap that often exists between official stories and the horrific reality on the ground. And two, it's a grim reminder that some of the world's most brutal conflicts are happening far from the headlines, almost in the dark.
From a conflict far away to an act of violence in Atlanta, Georgia, a gunman opened fire near the headquarters of the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC. A police officer and the suspect were both killed, and the reported motive is just heartbreaking. The suspect apparently believed that the COVID vaccine had made him suicidal. This tragedy is like a perfect storm. It sits at the horrifying intersection of so many of our modern crises: gun violence, mental health, and the incredibly toxic, polarized debate around public health and science.
We end this section with an act of violence in Bangkok that is just unbelievably shocking. 2 tourists from Malaysia were attacked outside a major mall, doused with paint thinner, and set on fire. It's a horrific, brutal crime. And beyond the human tragedy, an attack this public sends shockwaves through Thailand's economy, which is so heavily reliant on tourism. It shows how one single brutal act can have consequences that ripple out and affect an entire nation's livelihood.
Okay, let's take a deep breath. That was a heavy section. For our final act, we're going to shift gears. We're zooming back out to look at the things that connect all of us: our planet, our culture, and those incredible moments where people manage to work together and achieve something amazing.
First up, let's look at some masterful political maneuvering in Brazil. President Lula was faced with a very controversial environmental bill. So, what did he do? He vetoed 63 articles of it, including the most dangerous one, which would have let big farming businesses self-license their own projects. It's a clever move. Brazil is hosting the big COP30 climate summit soon, so this makes Lula look like an environmental hero. But by not vetoing the entire bill, he avoids a major fight with the powerful farm lobby. It's a political tightrope walk, and he's trying to keep his balance right in the middle.
From a national fight to a global one, negotiators are in the final stages of hammering out a global plastics treaty. And it's all come down to one major sticking point: whether to ban the production of new plastics. On one side, you have scientists and environmentalists saying we have to turn off the tap at the source. On the other side, you have powerful oil-producing countries and the fossil fuel industry, for whom plastic is big business.
This isn't just about a treaty. It's a classic battle between science and economics, and the outcome is going to define how we tackle pollution for decades to come.
And here's a perfect example of how that stuff connects directly to our lives. The Philippines is dealing with a huge outbreak of a disease called leptospirosis. This comes right after heavy rains and major flooding, and now the hospitals in Manila are completely overwhelmed. It's a clear chain of events. Climate change leads to more extreme weather. Poor urban planning means cities can't handle it, and the result is a massive public health crisis. It shows just how closely climate, infrastructure, and our health are all linked.
Now for a story about culture. The government of Mexico is accusing the giant company Adidas of cultural appropriation over a shoe design. They say the design uses traditional Mexican motifs without permission or respect. And Adidas is just the latest in a long line of brands to face these kinds of charges. The message is getting louder and louder. A country's culture is not a mood board for designers. It's a hard lesson for global brands that cultural heritage has to be respected, not just mined for the latest trend.
And now for a story that literally rises above all the conflict. The crew of the International Space Station, Crew 10, just returned safely to Earth. And get this crew list: 2 Americans, 1 Japanese astronaut, and 1 Russian cosmonaut. For months, they lived and worked together in a tiny tin can orbiting the Earth. While their countries are at odds down here, they were up there trusting each other with their lives. The ISS continues to be this incredible, powerful symbol of what we can achieve when we choose collaboration over conflict.
We're going to end today with another story of a barrier finally being broken. And this timeline really tells the story. Professional baseball in the US started in 1869. It wasn't until 1972 that a woman named Bernice Guerra even won the right in court to become an umpire. And then, on August 9, 2025, Jen Powell stepped onto a Major League Baseball field and became the first woman to umpire a regular season game. This isn't just a first, it's the result of more than 150 years of history and a long, hard fight. A truly historic day.
So after all of that, the conflicts, the protests, but also the cooperation and the historic breakthroughs, it really leaves you with a big question. Looking at our world, just on any given day, what defines us more? Is it our conflicts, or is it our moments of cooperation? Something for you to chew on. We sincerely hope that by bringing you just the facts, we can help you understand all sides of the story to make this world a better place for everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And remember to follow us on Spotify and YouTube to listen to this podcast every morning at 8 a.m. GMT.